All right, Shalom. First and foremost, want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim Makakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone that rule well, teach well, that taught me this truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect. All right, the Akim and the Akwaf scattered on the four corners of the earth. All right, I'm the brother Arak from GMS Dallas, and coming to you guys with another lesson through the Spirit. I'll entitle this lesson "Remember to Remain Thankful." All right, remember to remain thankful. All right, and this is going to be a quick hit through the Spirit. I had a few precepts that I wanted to touch on. All right, because as we can see, um, prophecies are taking place. Right, we are getting closer to the establishment of the MOT, the mark of the beast system. All right, and the actual mark of the beast, which is the implantable CHIP. Um, we're getting closer and closer to that actually being established. Okay, and in order for them to establish that, things are going to have to get a lot tighter here in the States, in America. All right, especially economically, especially financially. All right, financial, tough times, so to speak, have been here, but it's going to increase. All right, when you read about what the Lord did to ancient Egypt, for example, all right, one of the first plagues that he did was turning water into blood. All right, and when you go into the history of ancient Egypt, all right, it's pretty well understood, historically, that the Nile River was the bread and butter of the Egyptian economy. It was the linchpin of the Egyptian economy. Um, so when the Lord plagued the Nile River, that was a very intentional, jab or punch, blow, a plague. That was a very intentional thing that Yahweh Shem Yahushai did to the Egyptians. All right, it's something that impacted everyone. All right, and right now with the Iran situation and them closing the Strait of Hormuz, all right, we know that that's going to disrupt, the supply chain to a certain extent. All right, and that's going to disrupt, oil markets, gas. All right, energy. Okay, and energy is basically, that's what makes everything move. That's what makes everything work. All right, in this global economy that we're in. All right, scriptures say the earth is given into the hand, okay, of the wicked. Right, the scriptures also talk about, all right, how Esau was given the fatness of the earth. Let's get that real quick. All right, this is Genesis chapter 27, and I'm going to read verse 39. All right, and it says, "And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and the dew of heaven from above." All right, and when you get that word fatness, all right, it essentially goes into oil, because fat is oil. You know what I'm saying? You melt down fat, and what do you get? You get oil. All right, which is basically a lubricant. It helps things move. Like if if your skin is dry, all right, what do? You put on oil, you put on lotion, and it lubricates your skin. It allows your skin to be more elastic. You know what I'm saying? Um, so again, oil. We see what the Lord is doing. The Lord is getting ready to hit Babylon the Great with a series of plagues, as before. All right, the scriptures talk about that too. Let's get that. This is 2nd Ezra 15, and I'm gonna get verse 2nd Ezra 15 and 12. It says, "Egypt shall mourn," and this is talking about America here. All right, this isn't talking about ancient Egypt. This is talking about spiritual Sodom in Egypt. That's outlined in Revelation the 11th chapter, and the I want to say the 8th verse. All right, which is why the back of the dollar has a pyramid on it, which is why you have obelisk, all right, all over the country, which was an Egyptian custom, right? You got emojis, right, which are basically, the modern day hieroglyph, so to speak. Okay, this is 2nd Ezra 15 and 12. It says, "Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and punishment that God shall bring upon it. All right. And the foundation of something is basically what holds something up, what holds something, what keeps something standing. All right. And we understand that America has been propped up by the petrodollar, being able to basically uh price oil in dollars, you know. So we see that with what's going on in Iran, all right, it's basically it's going to be an economic impact, all right, from that. And exactly how that plays out, remains to be seen. Um, but we see that the Lord is working. Okay, the Lord is working. All right. So within the context of that, all right, it's going to be important to remain thankful. All right, because the Lord is getting ready to break this place down. He's getting ready to break the spirit of these people, so that they cry out, for the MOTB. All right, which is ultimately, Esau. How Esau, that's Esau's plan. All right, we know Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is controlling Esau through the spiritual demon Satan. All right, but the whole point of getting you to the NWO is going to be, all right, that causes all. All right, he's going to cause everyone to want that shit, and that's why you see Neuralink, you see, the chip technology, right? They go into, its medical uses, its ability to heal, right? Its ability to communicate, its ability to, allow you to have different, interfaces and things of that nature, right? Those miracles that the scriptures talk about, you know, people are gonna want this chip. They're gonna take it willingly. All right. And that's where our trial, that's where our hour of temptation is going to come into play. All right. And a part of being able to endure through that is going to be remaining thankful for the things that Yahweh Bashim Yahushua has freely given us. Okay. So I'm going to read this in Psalms 100. Read this in Psalms 100. It says, "Make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands." All right. Because Israelites were scattered unto all the nations under heaven. Right. You have Israelites on every continent on the planet Earth. All right. That are returning, to the obedience of the scriptures. Okay. In Isaiah 11, in the 11th chapter, it talks about how the outcasts of Israel and the dispersed of Judah, all right, would return. Okay. This is Psalms 102. It says, "Serve the Lord with gladness, and before his presence with singing. Know ye that the Lord, he is God." Right. And that word God right there means power, Allah. All right. And you're going to have to know that the Lord is going to sustain you through these times. Can't have any doubt in your mind. All right. You have to know that Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is going to sustain you through these times. And it's not going to make sense. It's not going to necessarily be logical. You ain't going to be able to necessarily, know exactly how it's going to take place. You're just going to have to believe, and there's no way else to put that. You're just going to have to believe. Okay. It says, "Know ye that the Lord, he is power. It is he that made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people, and the sheep of his pasture." All right. And sheep are dependent upon their shepherds to feed them. Okay. Sheep are reliant on their shepherds to guide them to, a fruitful land. Okay. That's Psalms 23 all day. "The Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want." The Lord is getting ready to guide his elect and his remnant through the hardest times in human history. All right. But it's going to be trying, and it's going to be difficult, and it's going to be hard. All right. And remaining thankful is what's going to allow us to endure, because thankfulness is really a byproduct of faith. It's a byproduct of faith, because we know that as hard as these times are going to be, these times are needed for us to be purified, as a people, as a collective, but also individually. These times, the fire that the scriptures liken it to, is going to purify, the elect. It's going to clean us up. It's going to remove the remaining impurities, all right, that dwell, in the midst of our spirits. But this is Psalms chapter 100 and verse 4. This is the point. It says, enter into his gates with thanksgiving. Okay? Enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him and bless his name. All right, so there's a certain spirit of thankfulness that we're going to need to maintain and strengthen in order to make it through the times that we're getting ready to, have to go through Jacob's trouble. All right, and when you read the book of Acts, the apostles, the disciples, the disciples that became apostles, all right, starting with Peter, James, John, so forth. They demonstrated this thankfulness even when they were persecuted. And I'm going to read a little excerpt of that, and then I'm going to close it out. Acts, the 5th chapter, is a good chapter that goes into it. It's a longer chapter, so I'm going to get to the point. Because when you read the chapter, they basically go through a series of persecutions. All right. But when you get verse 40 through 42, the subheader on my Bible says the apostles beaten. Right. So they had just literally got done, being beaten. All right. I'm going to read this. Acts 5 and 40. It says, and to him they agreed. And when they had called the apostles and beaten them, they commanded that they should not speak in the name of Yahushua and let them go, right? Because the apostles have been imprisoned, but the Lord delivered them. All right. They got a so-called slap on the wrist, but they were physically beaten, Verse 41, it says, and they departed from the presence of the council, rejoicing that they were counted worthy to suffer shame for his name. All right, let me read that again. Acts 5 and 41. It says, and they departed from the presence of the council, rejoicing. They were thankful. All right. So through the Spirit, they weren't shook. They weren't confused. They weren't scared. They were thankful. All right. And that's the spirit that's going to be on the elect. Thankfulness. It says that's part of the Holy Spirit, comfort. Right? Comfort. It says, and they departed from the presence of the council, rejoicing that they were counted worthy to suffer shame for his name, right? Because you have to be worthy to even suffer for the name of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. And that shows you that the Lord don't want everybody. Okay, the Lord don't want everybody. All right, some individuals ain't even worthy to suffer for Yahushua's name. All right, and that's why the scriptures say, for many are called, but few are chosen. All right, the elect are those chosen vessels that are actually, worthy to suffer for Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua's name, and they're going to remain thankful. All right, throughout this process of persecution in Jacob's trouble, But I just wanted to make a quick point on that. Through the Spirit, Lord's willing, this lesson was edifying. With that, we give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai B'Shem Mekakodash. Shalom to the next lesson.